The more complex the network is, the more complex its patterns of interconnection, the more resilient it becomes. Hi, my name is Tomisin Akeredolu-Martins, and I'm a 400 level law student of Babalola University, Ado-Ekiti, and an undergraduate intern here at HARLEM Solicitors. With reference to my previously mentioned quotes by Fritjof Capra, I am here to give a short lecture on the concept of interconnection of telecommunication networks in Nigeria. To further explain, I'll pose a little illustration for you. I live in Ibadan. My aunt lives in Lagos. We talk on the phone every day. Yet I use an MTN SIM and my aunt uses an Airtel SIM. How then are we able to communicate despite being users of two different network services providers? This is because of interconnection. According to Section 157 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003, interconnection is the physical and logical linking and connection of communication systems used or operated by the same or different licensees in order to convey messages to and from the respective systems for the provision of services. According to paragraph 1, sub 1 of the guidelines on the technical standards for interconnectivity networks, interconnection is the establishment of electrical linkages between service providers for the exchange of traffic. Simply put, interconnection can just be said to be how one network service provider is able to enable one user of one network service provider is able to connect with another user of a network service provider through calls and messages without any hitch. Why then do we need interconnection? We need interconnection for a variety of reasons, but one major reason why we need interconnection is for consumer satisfaction. Consumers are satisfied when they do not have any problems while trying to communicate with their loved ones or people around them. This is because the more we interconnect, the more we are enabled to reach a wide variety of people. Another major reason why we need to interconnect and why interconnection is good is the growth of the telecommunication market. It promotes good, fair competition in the telecommunications market and also reduces the possibility of monopolization in the telecommunications market. For example, I'll give another illustration. Imagine I own a network service provider, A, and another person owns another network service provider, B. I am doing fairly well with my network service provider, and B too is doing fairly well with his network service provider. B suddenly gets the idea to provide a tariff plan or a major deal, which would obviously draw more consumers to use his network service provider. I, while realizing this, would see that I need to also step up and draw more consumers to use my network service provider. This whole process helps telecommunications markets to grow. So this is why interconnection is very beneficial for telecommunications in Nigeria. There are 5 major legislations governing the operation and the use of interconnection in Nigeria. These legislations are the Nigerian Communications Act 2003, as I previously mentioned, then also the guideline on the technical standards for the interconnectivity of networks, which was also previously mentioned. We also have the guidelines for international access and voice over internet protocol. We have the Telecommunication Networks Interconnection Regulations 2007, and we also have the guidelines for granting the approval to disconnect telecommunication operators 2012, thereafter referred to as the 2012 guidelines. All these legislations mentioned help to regulate the operation of interconnection in Nigeria. Section 96 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 addresses the obligation of interconnection, like network service providers, to interconnect with other network service providers. Let me explain. In order to ensure that monopolization isn't prominent in the telecommunications sector, Section 96 provides that a licensee would send a written request to a telecommunications service provider to interconnect with them. Once that is the requesting party, once the other network service provider who is receiving this request gets it, they are obligated, the onus is on them to accept to interconnect with the requesting party. This is in order to ensure that bigger telecommunication service providers, network service providers, don't refuse interconnection with not as popular network service providers. For example, if a big network service provider like MTN or Glo or Nine Mobile, Airtel is sent an interconnection request, they may choose not to interconnect with this other smaller network service provider due to the fact that they may not see fit to interconnect with this smaller network service provider. But Section 96 of Nigerian Communications Act 2003 prevents that from happening. So technically, we can say that this particular section is created in favor of such network service providers as the minor ones. Section 97, sub 1, A and B of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 addresses the issue of interconnection agreements. Section 97, sub 1, A and B states that an interconnection agreement must be written and it must be in accordance with the Act and its other subsidiary legislations, which are the regulations and guidelines as I mentioned earlier. So, and subsection 1, part B says that apart from also being in line with the Act and the subsidiary legislations, it should also be in line with the following principles, which are transparency, neutrality, fair competition, equal terms and conditions, and so on, universal coverage, etc. So this is to ensure that an interconnection agreement is fair and neutral, non-discriminatory. Section 97, sub 2 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 addresses the fact that the Nigerian Communications Commission has the power and authority to intervene in an interconnection agreement if the following situations occur as provided in Section 97, sub 2, A, B, and C, subsection A, B, and C, which states that if the Nigerian Communications Commission realizes that the provisions of this interconnection agreement is not in line with the provisions of the Act, they can seek to intervene and modify or terminate the agreement. Subsection B states that they can also seek to intervene if it is evidence that there is no consensus between both parties of the interconnection agreement, and they can also seek to intervene if it is not in accordance with public interest. Section 98, sub 1 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 then addresses the fact that after an interconnection agreement is made, it is obligatory for either or both parties involved in the interconnection agreement to submit this agreement to the Nigerian Communications Commission for registration within 30 days of the agreement having been completed. So that basically aligns the fact that once an interconnection agreement is agreed upon, that is not the end. They still have to make sure that the Nigerian Communications Commission agrees and is in agreement with the provisions of the interconnection agreement as provided in subsection 2 of Section 98 of Nigerian Communications Act 2003. Subsection 3 of Section 98 of the Nigerian Communications Act addresses the fact that the Nigerian Communications Commission has the power to ask or request for more information, for things they may need to further confirm if they are going to register or accept the interconnection agreement. Finally, Section 100 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 addresses the issue of disconnection of a network service provider. In this case, Section 100 states that either party cannot seek to disconnect their network service provider without prior notice to the Nigerian Communications Commission, as that is not statutory and shall result in a myriad of problems. I hope that this little lecture has been sufficient enough to give you a cursory overview of what interconnection is in Nigeria. However, if you would like to learn more, be sure to visit HARLEM's website at www.harlemsolicitors.com or visit their other social media pages, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook at HARLEM Solicitors. Thank you very much.